Hello guys, hope you all are having a fantastic day. Let us begin with our today's video.
Hi Sai, hope you are having a great day.
Hi, Pawan. Yeah, I'm doing well. Yeah, how about you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for accepting the invite and giving us your prestigious time for this session.
Oh, no, thanks for having me. Yeah.
Yeah. So we will begin with the session. The first question that I have for you is to build a connect with the audience and everything, so that the audience knows you better. Can you please introduce yourself in the brief? Because I went through your LinkedIn profile and I saw a lot of things that you have done. So can you please share about your educational journey and entrance preparation and your journey to the US?
Sure. Yeah, let's get started. So basically, yeah, like, hi, my name is Sai Kaushik. And basically, just to get to talk a little bit about me, basically, I'm currently in the US. I work for Google, and I've been in the software industry for about 8 to 9 years now. Right now, I guess. Wow, it's been a long time. So I think, yeah, talking about my exam preparation and everything, I think it's been forever. But basically, yeah, like I'm from Bits Pilani, and it's been tough getting into the Bits Pilani, I guess. We have been, of course, like working. I think you usually work for about 2 years, which is like, of course, like the intermediate, I guess, like the plus one, plus two, which is quite hard. But that being said, yeah, it's been a fun journey for me.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great. And the next question that I have is like what since you have been to the US and you have studied over there as well and in India as well. So what is the difference between the Indian approach to education and the US approach to education?
So that's a great question.
Mhm,
So at least in the recent years, it has been getting pretty close. Like as
mhm,
in, it has been pretty similar, is what I would like to say, which is perfect in whatever the students want. But something that I've been seeing in US at least is that they concentrate. I mean, more on the recent skills. Like for example, computer software industry has taken
mhm,
off quite a lot in the past decade, which is something that no one expected in the first
mhm,
place. And then again, coming to the industry aspect of it, like for example, the software industry has actually penetrated into literally every other industry right now, like be it mechanical, electrical, electronics, whatever it may be.
mhm,
But one thing that I've seen in the Indian approach to education is that we still consider software industry or computer science as something which is separate, which I think
mhm.
may will is still evolving and will definitely get there soon. But that's something that US has already adopted. Like for example, I have seen the case that like in undergrad or in whenever they are going about engineering, it's always the case that like they write programs. There is a lot of emphasis on programming. There is a lot of emphasis on getting the fundamentals right,
Mhm.
which usually help them getting better industry prospects as well.
What is your take on recession and future of software developers? Because there is a lot of buzz going around in the market regarding recession in the IT industry and something like that. So what do you have to say on that?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, it's a little hard time that we are living in right now, I guess. With all the, I mean, of course, like I think you have been hearing quite a lot in the news as well, given that there have been a lot of layoffs that is
Mhm,
happening with the big companies. But I mean, that being said, right, I would definitely say that the software industry is here to stay. Like, there is no, I mean, it was not as if even though it may look a little bleak in the cup. I mean, in the recent times, like I wouldn't suggest that this is going to stay. Of course, like it's
mhm,
going to definitely pick up in the cup in the next coming couple of years.
mhm,
But that being said, at least like from an internal perspective, like
mhm,
say for example, if I were to talk internally to Google or something of sort,
mhm,
we still are hiring. Like they're almost all the big companies are still hiring, although it has decreased in intensity. I would
mhm,
definitely say that they are still hiring, because like the software industry is not going to go anywhere. And the big coming to the future, there are there are great things that are happening in the software industry, and this is like a great time that we are living in, let me put it that way, because there's a lot of research that is going on in the software industry, be it in terms of, let's say, for example, Elon Musk electric cars or
mhm.
Neuralink or SpaceX, everything has software involved in it. Or let's say now coming to Google's perspectives or metaverse when it comes to Meta, or Google's perspective when it comes to AR, VR, so on and so forth. There are a lot of things going on. So it's a great time that we are living in.
Yeah, right. Great. So tell me, Sai, how did you come up with this full stack fellowship with only two students per session?
So that's a good question. So now coming to it, unfortunately, like we have always been the. Actually, let me put a more personal note to it. I guess like so. At least during the initial years of my career, I've
Mhm.
always like I wanted to learn new things, which is always the case. Of course, like I think with many of the guys out there as well. But that being said, right, like so whenever I go on to any online courses, it's like let's say be it Udemy or be it any other courses out there, like Coursera, there are a lot of things out there. Like there's like the wealth of knowledge out there. But that being said, whenever I usually get started, it's usually the case that like of course like the course runs at a certain pace. That being said, of course like you can pause and I mean get restarted anytime. That's totally fine. But whenever I get any questions, right, as it being an initial session with me, I don't usually know how to even search for solutions online. So that's one of the issues.
Mhm.
And one more thing is that it's impossible for me to kind of like let's say have my doubts clarified
Mhm.
because there's nobody helping me out. And one more thing is that the other problem is like let's say I get started coding.
Mhm.
I don't perfectly know if the approach that I'm taking is the right thing, or if I get blocked, how to unblock myself.
Mhm.
And as I don't know what questions to even ask on, like let's say, what questions to I even Google, it's always impossible for me to get started because of so many roadblocks. I usually don't end up completing the course, and
Mhm.
I just leave it halfway through, or like let's say even before as well, which is usually the case with many other people out there, is what we felt, because of which we took a more personal approach to teaching, which is
Mhm.
like having students, like having as less number of students as possible with a personalized mentor, so which will help us complete the course and actually learn the skill in the first place.
Right. Correct, correct. Because even I have observed this, a lot of people start some course online or on YouTube or Udemy, and they don't complete it simply because just because they are stuck somewhere and they didn't get the solution on Google or somewhere else. So they simply stop that video, they stop learning and something like that. And that is happening with a lot of people. I agree with you. Now, majority of people don't know about this personalized mentor program with two students per session. What are its benefits? Can you please enlighten us on that?
Sure, totally. There are actually a couple of facets to it, I guess. Let me
Mhm.
get started. And of course, like we can go more into it as well.
Mhm.
But let me start from an industry perspective. So, like, I know that many of you guys kind of like many of the students out there are kind of looking to get into the FAANG companies, which are, of
Mhm.
course, like one of the dream companies. And having working, I mean, being working at a FAANG company like Google,
Mhm.
let me put it this way. So many of my colleagues are actually like a couple of my colleagues are actually high school. Just completed high school. They
Mhm.
did not even go to into the undergrad. A couple of them are like completely from a totally different background. Like one of my close colleagues is actually from a physics background. He never did engineering in the first place. So like one thing that I felt was majority of the people out there still feel that they need to be in computer science. They need to be in, let's say, they need to complete a certain college degree. They need to be at the top of the field, so on and so forth, to get into
Mhm.
these FANG companies, which unfortunately is not the real truth. So getting into it, let's now get into why mentorship is actually helping out.
Mhm.
So basically, as I said, the completion rates out there for online courses are almost next to abysmal, which is what we wanted to change in the first place. So now understanding why mentorship helps, right? The first thing that the mentorship is actually helping with is completing the course itself, like which is exactly what you want to do and learn that skill in the first place. For example, let's say that okay, you started off as a beginner and you don't know actually where you okay you're learning something, and it's not always the case that when you are in a like in an online cohort or something of sort, like where there are like 60 students in a class, or like
Mhm.
let's say 100 students in a class. It's always the case that all of them don't learn at the same speed, which is almost always the case with any online class program, or like even literally a live class too. So the first thing that we wanted to put out there was mentorship actually handles that. Like for example,
Mhm.
you may be learning at a certain pace. Like I am a slow learner myself. Like I don't actually understand things in the very quickly in the first place. So
Mhm.
I take a couple more hours to learn, for which mentorship really helped me out. Like during the initial years of my career,
Mhm.
I having a mentor really helped me out, because whenever I was slow, my mentor was quickly able to point out where I should kind of concentrate more. Like for
Mhm.
example, let's say okay, when it comes to an industry perspective, or when it comes to cracking an interview for the
Mhm.
FANG companies itself, it really helps out understanding, okay, these are important concepts and these are okay, you can learn these, but these are not so important when it comes to interview perspective.
Right. Correct.
So learning that insider perspective is something which we always crave, right? And having such wealth of information out there, you cannot learn everything and anything. So it's better to have a focused approach to interviews, which is exactly what a mentor provides. And also, it's always the case that a couple of students require more hand holding, like myself. Like, of course, like I require more hand holding, and but during the initial phases, and of course, you pick up, like, because it's always through practice you learn skills, and once you get better at it, you require less hand holding, which is exactly what a mentor does. And of course, like mentor support, which is like the guidance that I was talking about. Like, for example, let's say, okay, you wrote a piece of code, right? You may be having several doubts that is it really good, or like, I mean, is it what the companies are looking for? Like, that's a couple of doubts that I have always had. So having mentors who are real industry software engineers will help us understand that, okay, hey, they have done like thousands of interviews themselves. And so having a look at that industry perspective, saying that if you write your code this way, the interviewer will be really impressed. Or let's say that, okay, uh, this is a good way to approach it, but there is a better way to approach it. Or for example, let's say that, hey, like having that code reviewed, for example, okay, you wrote a good piece of code, like I don't have any issues with that, but is that industry standard, or is that how about how we go about doing that? And during the later part of our 10x Academy, we actually have a real life application project which we have the students do, to have them build like the necessary full stack skills required for the industry experience out there. So I would say that mentorship really helps out there as well. For example, not only like when it comes to a real life project, right? One thing that I see was many students take many paths to get to their final solution. So just giving them the final solution, saying that, hey, your project's code should look like this, doesn't really help them out. Because one thing I felt was, I really feel that, like, okay, when a student writes a piece of code, it's also important for us to show them why his or her piece of code is not working, rather than just saying that this is the right piece of code,
Right.
because that it does not really help that. So now understanding what the student wrote and then correcting them right then and there is really helpful for them to understand how to correct their own piece of code, and then basically go about like getting better is what is really needed, than just showing that, okay, this is better, or like whatever happened, whatever is currently being done. So that being said, of course, like approaching from an industry perspective is what mentor really helps out. Like code review, applying that, okay, making sure that the code quality is up there, and again making sure that you write scalable and modular piece of code is extremely important. So that's what I would like to say.
Now, a lot of employees actually want to switch or change their existing job for a better opportunity, but they're not able to do so. Probably a lot of them are scared to switch just because they lack the skills required for the roles and the challenges. So, can you tell us how this boot camp can help the working professionals?
Sure, definitely. So, like having been there myself, let me actually take a more personal approach to it, I guess. So, first things that I would like to say is this is pretty common. Like, because I just want to say to all the people out there that, like, who are feeling afraid that this might be a little uncommon, this is totally common. Like, and this comes with practice, is what I would like to say. Because many of my colleagues at Google, right, like they're constantly learning and they're constantly exploring other opportunities. Like, not only jobs out there, but of course, like basically even internally, right? Like whenever you want to learn new skills, it's always the case that you just constantly keep learning. So now coming to how the bootcamp will help you guys, right? So the first thing is, as we just discussed, so having a personalized mentor to get started is a great thing to learn the skills which are required for you to kind of tackle new roles and new challenges. So that definitely helps, as we discussed earlier. And not only that, but towards the later part of the boot camp, you actually get to work on like a full stack project, which is like which is very similar to, not very similar, I guess, which is actually a real world application that you are building with all the skills that are required for the new roles and the new challenges that you might be looking for. So having such a project, having you guys So building such a project will definitely help you learn all the skills required, because you have an industry professional helping you out and making sure that your code is up to the mark, helping you out and making sure that okay, you are getting unblocked in every sense of the way. And not only that, but towards the end of the boot camp, we actually have a lot of mock interviews. Mock interviews being that, like, okay, industry professionals who have done like thousands of interviews like myself actually come to you guys and make sure that you are well prepped for the interview.
Right.
For example, let's say that okay, this is as close to a real interview as it can get. And once the interview is done, one major thing that we wanted to give you guys was feedback. Like, for example, having a real time feedback is essentially what is required for you guys to grow and learn
Right.
what is
Right.
required for you to tackle that new role. For example, let's say that okay, you actually like aced the interview, you did the interview very well, but unfortunately you may have actually been a little less confident, right? So it may always be the case that some of the other skills are like a little off as well. So that's totally fine. Like, I can totally understand, like, interviewing is a very scary skill. Even I get like super nervous. So now the like the interviewer in the mock interview can actually help you without to saying that okay, hey, your interview was great, you actually have all the skills required, which means that you need to work a little on your confidence, because basically that's something which will help you out in the interviews as well. And then again, let's say that okay, if you took a certain approach but the interviewer wanted to take you another approach, then the interviewer can let you know that okay, hey, this is in real world interviews, this is what we usually look for. So basically, why don't you actually take this approach, and that will definitely help you out. So one thing what we felt was having the interviewers come from all these like software engineering companies, like let's say be it FAANG companies, be it all the other software engineering companies, really helps you out, like ace your interviews. The yeah.
As you have already mentioned that in the US, a lot of people are from different background and they are working currently in top IT companies, right? Google, Amazon, Facebook. A lot of people are working from a non-technical background. They are going into technical companies, right? Product-based companies. So, can a person with zero coding knowledge be benefited from this module that you have built? That is 1:1 mentorship program. And who would be the mentors and the instructors for this program?
That's a great question. So at least let me start off this way, I guess. Let me first put it out there to everyone like watching, saying that you don't need to be from a technical background to get into all these FANG companies or any software industry. It's again, let me reassure you that majority of my colleagues are actually from different backgrounds. So and towards the end, right, like nobody cares what background you're from. It's always the case that like if you have the necessary skills required, that's it. So once you crack the interview, like nobody cares. So let me put it that way. And now to actually say, to tackle the specific zero coding knowledge question, right? So yes, but it's totally possible for you to even crack a FANG company with zero coding knowledge to get started from that. So that's totally possible. Let me put it that. But basically now what is required for you to crack is something that we need to tackle. So the first things would be that again, like you need to learn the necessary skills required for the interview. Again, that being said, it is a programming and of course like data such as an algorithms and full stack engineering. So that's totally possible to learn all of these skills again. So now coming to it again, like having a personal mentor really helps, because like having had a personal mentor myself, I cannot emphasize enough on how the mentor would help, because basically, as I said, beginners don't actually know like what right questions to ask. So having a mentor say that, hey, these concepts are important. So, and this is how you get started. And not only that, actually explaining those concepts to you in the way that a person understands is really important. And the reason why I say that is because like when I was learning those concepts myself and being a slow learner myself, I could not for the life of me understand a couple of concepts. So having that mentor explain to me like in the simplest way possible was something that I was able to digest that concept in the right way. And once you are able to learn the concept in the right way, it is impossible for you to forget that knowledge.
Right.
And it'll help you in the coming years, like because it's been like what 8 to 9 years since I learned those concepts, I guess, but I could not for the life of me forget those concepts. And even now when I'm actually really, I mean, sitting down for interviews, it really helps me out a lot. So be it again, let me stress that enough that okay, mentor helps you out in code reviews, in approaching the problems the right way, in actually approaching that in asking the right interview questions as well. Like let's say in during those mentor sessions, right, you actually have the mentors posing the interview questions themselves as practice problems. So once you actually practice those problems, which are real life interview problems itself, the interview questions don't actually seem that hard because you have practiced such problems many times. And again, dry running is one of the most important concepts of any interview, because basically you need to make sure that the code that you wrote is actually working, because we just don't want to put something which doesn't work. So we want to make sure that, okay, such skills are really required, and basically we want to make sure that interviewers or our mentors are actually helping out in that sense as well. Now, coming to who would be our mentors or instructors,
Right.
I was an instructor myself in 10x Academy. So basically, I can safely say that almost basically not almost all of my colleagues are from software industry background. They have worked in FAANG companies. They were either ex FAANG or currently working in FAANG companies, trying to teach you all the concepts that are required to ace these interviews. And again, they are being from such a prolific software industry background, or being from such a great programming background. They clearly know how or basically what mistakes you are making, to make sure that you can avoid those mistakes in the future in the first place. And not only that, but again, to make sure that, okay, like to approach the problems in the right way. So that being said, again, like it's also important to make sure that you keep all the concepts in mind. Like, for example, making sure that your code is up to the mark when it comes to industry standards, dry running it to make sure that, like, hey, you are doing it in a great sense, but it's important to test your code as well. Is something that is really made sure by the mentors or instructors.
Right, absolutely. Like I have a point which is a little bit offbeat, and I know, like I read it somewhere that इतना network बना लो कि refer करने वाला क्या interview लेने वाला भी पहचान वाला निकले, right? निकले. So like it's being said, these things, like I know that these mentors are from top coding background, or like from top product based companies, FANG companies. So like even the referral from them can be a lot of, it can be of lot of potential, right? Mentor
Oh
from the
yes,
mentors.
that's totally true. Because like giving an insider perspective, right? Like referrals play a huge role in hiring, because it is actually because think about it this way. Like, let's say that your colleague who is from Google is actually saying that this candidate is good, right? That
Right.
really helps out, because rather than kind of interviewing an unknown person, like, which is of course, like, which works out too. I am not saying that that doesn't work out, but having a colleague say that, okay, this candidate is great, is like really helps out, because you go into the interview with the mindset that candidate is already great. So that takes off some of the nervousness from the candidate themselves, and
Right.
also it makes sure that the candidate is properly vetted in the first place.
Right. Correct. Absolutely.
Thank you for watching this video, guys. Please like this video, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Thank you so much, Sai, for guiding all our viewers and our subscribers. I hope that this session will be really beneficial for all the viewers who are watching this video right now. So, thank you once again for your prestigious time.